Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Life Between All or Nothing. I'm Scott J.
I'm Mary Kay.
And we're here to tell you that nobody is stuck unless you choose to stay stuck. If you got something in your life you want to change, it is your power, within your power, and entirely up to you to change it. Just don't let fear and habit keep you in the wrong place. That's pretty much what we're trying to tell people, right, Mary?
That's right.
Can you believe
it's all within your power?
Can you believe it's episode 9 already?
No.
This is episode number 9. Yeah.
Unbelievable how time flies.
It's amazing. And I want to thank everybody who's been supporting us and tuning in and sharing, like our friends Chris Roush and Lynn Serrano, who constantly share our stuff. And we appreciate that so much. And, we got a nice little community of podcasters here who aren't just on the air just to be on the air. We're on the air to make a difference. And, we appreciate all of you. Mary and I talk about all of you constantly. We love all of you. So just want to thank you all for being supportive for us. And we've got some great people coming this way. Oh, okay. We already got a hi to you both. Congratulations on episode number 9.
Thank you.
Yes, there we go.
Thank you.
Okay, that was from Mom. All right. Mom is always right there with it.
That was Sandy, Mom.
Good boy. Good boy. You're such a good boy.
Oh, I love how your mom supports you. It's awesome and it's beautiful to see.
I appreciate her, and we support each other in our paintings and everything.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that I got back in my life in recovery is my relationship with my mom and my relationship with my dad, which was so damaged. And I'm just so grateful for that every day. There's just beyond words how grateful I am to have those relationships healed and thriving. But we got a great guest today. Let's not dilly-dally about this. Why don't you tell us about Lee Hite?
Oh my God, I will. So we have the one and only Reverend Lee Hite today. Not only is he a very good friend of mine, but he's an amazing human. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Lee. Reverend Lee has been a minister of religious science since graduating from the Ernest Holmes College School of Ministry in Seattle in 1989. Ordained in 1993, he has served senior minister for 3 churches and assisted in 2 others. In the larger movement, he served as a local, regional, and national youth leader, including 2 years as chairman of Youth and Family Ministries. He also served on the International Board of Trustees for 3 years and taught in the School of Ministry. He first walked through the doors of the Church of Religious Science in Redondo Beach, California in 1975. How old were we? We were like 2 and 3? No, 6 and 7. At the time,
Lee's 108 years old, everybody, just so you know.
At the time, the church was led by Dr. Frank Richelieu and his wife, Anita. He knew he had found a spiritual home and immediately started classes with the grown-ups and got involved with a teen group. After spending 10 years as senior ministry, Lee left ministry to pursue his own renewal, healing, and recovery. So we're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. Over the course of several years, he was loosely involved with youth ministry and assisted from time to time as a guest speaker and workshop leader. His passions in ministry are teaching, speaking, and writing, whether it be in classes, workshops, or Sunday morning services, which I have heard before, which are amazing. Participating in learning and growth of our congregants is what brings him joy. After coming back to the Valley of the Sun in 2019, he began searching for a new spiritual home and chose Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living as his new home in 2021. Lee works full-time in the world for a major national veterinary practice as a maintenance technician. In his spare time, he's also building a life coaching and mentoring endeavor. He's working on a book of inspirational essays, daily readings, and journal guides scheduled for completion this year, 2023. So that is our special guest.
So he really doesn't do anything. I mean, my God.
Yeah, he just sits around doing nothing.
We got to meet this guy.
I know, right?
We got to bring him on. And here he is, the one and only Lee Hite. Lee, how are you, brother?
Oh, I'm wonderful, wonderful. How are you?
Yay!
Good to be here with you. It makes me sound like somebody special.
You are special. You
Somebody
are. We're
needs,
so honored to have you here today,
I
Lee.
know. Should we end the show now? That way you don't have to ruin any of the nice stuff we already said.
right? Gonna out me. Gonna out me right here. No, it's good to be here with you, and I've enjoyed watching your show. A couple times I've been able to drop in and catch it, and it's an honor to be here with you. I'm glad I'm celebrating episode 9 with y'all. You're going to be double digits next week.
Yeah.
Look out.
My goodness.
Ron has joined in saying, wonderful human being Lee is. There we
go.
And
Ron.
Ron, thanks for joining, Ron. Ron's been a little under the weather this week, so I'm really glad that he was able to tune in tonight instead of being wrapped up in his blankets at home.
Well, you could still be wrapped up in a blanket and listening to us,
right?
Just hydrate.
Yes.
Hydrate, Ron. Hydrate.
Hydrate, yes.
That's all
hydrate, Ron.
Water with lemon, a little ginger in there,
So let's start this out. You are in Scottsdale, Arizona right now.
I live in Tempe, which is where I am at the moment. Scottsdale's like right up the road. I am, a few blocks from Arizona State University, and I love being in the university, area around the younger, around the kids. Keeps me youthful.
Yeah.
Keeps me connected. Yeah, it's fun. Fun stuff.
You go out to their football games and everything, do you? Or
I could literally walk to the stadium.
Wow.
Wow.
That's great.
From where I live. Yeah.
That's great.
It's pretty cool. Cool.
Beautiful.
So we were talking about all this stuff. Let's start out. I mean, how did all this start? Now, I from the beginning of that, we were talking about back in 1975, but
right.
What was the beginning of your journey towards, working in a spiritual side of life?
Well, I got curious. I mean, my mom, God bless her, loves to tell the story about when I was probably like, I think keeps saying I was like 6 or something. And I looked up at her and I said, well, Mommy, why is God? So I guess I've always been curious. I started, and we weren't a real church going fam growing up, and we did all the sports stuff. We did baseball. I mean, excuse me, as I was growing up and got old enough, my brother and I played sports. If there was a season on, we were playing whatever sport that season was tied to: baseball, football, basketball, right. all the stuff. Yeah. So that tied up weekends, and we didn't do the church thing. And, about the time I was getting ready for high school, I started getting curious because, there was the Catholic family across the street and this other family. I saw them going to church, and, you hear, growing up in this, in the 60s and 70s, it was, church was a thing. I mean, I grew up in the times when most of the stores were closed on Sunday when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Because of church. So I got curious, picked up a Bible, started reading it. We had several Bibles around the house. So I started reading it and I started going through it. I said, okay. Got to the New Testament and I'm like, well, why am I hearing the same story 4 times?
Wow.
Curious minds want to know. And so, that's kind of how it started. And I went and explored a bunch of different churches. And my mom was listening to this show, this morning radio show with that had been started by Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of Church of Religious Science and the author of the book called The Science of Mind. And the organization is now called Centers for Spiritual Living. But it was a radio show started there were 2. There was one who was started by the man who followed in Ernest Holmes' footsteps, and another one by a local minister in Redondo Beach, Dr. Frank Richelieu. So, and she was listening to these shows, and I would sit there and listen to them in the morning with her. It was before I went to school. And I kind of liked it, and I said, well, Mom, can we go? I wanted to go to the Redondo Beach, which was right next door. I was in Torrance, California. That's where I grew up. Redondo Beach was right next door, and so we started going, and it was great. I mean, I started taking the classes there at the church, and got involved in the youth group, and one thing led to another. I ended up being part of the leadership in the youth group after a couple of years, and went into the larger movement as a teenager and young adult, and ended up, to make a long story short, and maybe we can do the long story. I don't know.
We have time. We have time. It's okay.
And I ended up, in leadership in the larger movement. And then after graduating high school, I kind of lost my way a little bit and got out into the world, drugs, alcohol. It was the 70s and the early 80s. And I was at that age, that rebellious age. And I got into, drugs, alcohol, rebellious nature, floated around up and down the West Coast for a few years, And my dad finally tracked me down. My parents had relocated to Seattle the year after I moved out of the house. And my dad was back down in Southern California on a work trip. I didn't even know he was there. And somehow he had found out that I was working as a lifeguard. I was working as a lifeguard at the Marina City Club in Marina Del Rey. Some people may recognize the buildings from the the first movie was the first Lethal Weapon movie.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
From you see the girl take the dive off the railing. Yeah, those buildings. So I was working it's a very exclusive club. I was working as a lifeguard, and my dad living in my car in the parking lot.
Wow.
Which was fine because it was summer and I was good. And, I had an understanding with the security guards, and they were cool, and so we were all fine. And my dad came and found me, and he said, "Well, whatever," because I had expressed an interest when I was in high school in becoming a minister. And he said, "Whatever happened to becoming a minister?" And he handed me the course catalog for the school in Seattle.
Wow.
He says, if you want to do this, we will back you. But if you start this, you're going to finish it.
Wow.
And
so that was kind of your move back in. Catherine's giving us a shout out, saying good evening, Scott.
Hey, there's my friend Catherine. Right. Yeah, and that's I mean, the rest is history. I mean, that was 1983, 84, 83.
Wow.
Yeah, going 83, summer of 83. And so I finished out, and interestingly enough, the couple of days after I made that commitment, the universe kind of came to supported me, and the daughter of the president of the club worked in the summer camp, and I was the lifeguard for the summer camp program. And her dad got wind of what was going on, that I'd been sleeping in the parking lot all summer, and then he got the rest of the story that I was going to be leaving to go to school in the fall. And so he said, "Hey, why don't you, I got a spare room, come on up." So I spent the last month or so of the summer living in the penthouse, or the president's penthouse of the club.
Wow.
Wait. From the parking lot to the penthouse.
Yep.
Literally from the parking lot.
That's a great name for a book.
So I moved from the parking lot to the penthouse, and then for the last, I guess, it was about the last month of the summer. And
so here's his book, the parking lot to the penthouse to the pulpit. That's
To
your
the
book
pulpit.
right
Yeah.
There you
There
go.
you go.
book
There
right
you go.
there.
The 3 Ps. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
I'll work on that one after I finish the one I'm on right now. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question because I want to be
Sure.
very straightforward with this, Lee, and
Yeah.
it's because I'm looking at your bio here and listening to what you're saying. You started at the Religious Church of Religious Science.
Yes.
And who are you with now?
It's the same organization. We just changed names.
And the name is now
Centers for Spiritual Living.
All right. Listen, there's been a lot of backlash with some of these organizations. We've heard a lot about the Scientology. We've heard a lot about different organizations out there and things like that. So people get a little weary, especially when you combine the church and the science together, because it's been bastardized, all right, by others.
Sure.
So what can you tell people about, not to shut themselves off to certain things? How is it different? Or you follow what I'm saying? It sends up red flags because of what we've seen in other places.
Sure, because we've seen Scientology, we've seen a lot of other stuff. And quite honestly, it's like I used to tell people on Sunday morning, on a couple 3 times a year, I'd stand up there, stand up, during my talk, my sermon, whatever you want to call it. I call it talk. I just stand there and talk. Call it talk. I enjoy. I'd stand there and say, I enjoy that you're here. I'm happy you all are here on Sunday morning. I'm happy you're here listening to me. And if this isn't working for you, I want you to go find something that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want you to find a way of life, a faith, a philosophy, a way of life that supports you in being the best version of you that you can be. So if that is Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Zoroastrianism, American Indian tradition, science of mind, which is the core of what I teach, the book, The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. If it's Christianity, if it's the Catholic Church, if it's the Episcopalians, find something. I want people to find something, because what I know for myself is that without a belief in a higher power, something greater than me, I feel a little lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe, I have a sense that there's something more than just me moving through this thing we call life with a bunch of other humans. I cannot believe in randomness.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
For me, I have a sense that there is an order to everything, that there is some kind of intelligence back of everything. Not an intelligence that's like moving the pieces, but an intelligence that allows me to access it in such a way that I know there is an order, that I can access it in such a way that I can fulfill what Jesus taught in the New Testament, where he said, "It is done unto you as you believe." Right? And we find that teaching in every great faith around the world.
Right.
Yeah, in every faith. So something universal.
Every faith has an absolute belief in the power of prayer. However it's formulated, a power of prayer. They believe in a higher power. The golden rule is in every major religion around the world. You can go look around and find it. It's there. And I keep finding that little meme. It keeps popping up. I keep saving it. It keeps disappearing. But anyway, but it's out there. We all know it's there. So yeah, I mean, it's like if you want to come spend some time with me on Sunday morning, great. If I don't fit the bill for you, find somewhere else. Find somebody else that does. Because faith is all fine and dandy, but I know community is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
finding that community. And this is the thing that a lot of churches, a lot of faith communities are struggling with right now, is getting people back in the building.
Yeah.
Because because of the lockdown and the pandemic and all that, everybody got so used to doing everything online that we're really struggling with we're not struggling. It's because it's been a challenge to get people back in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
right now we are, in the church, the community in Scottsdale, we're starting to see people come back now.
That's great.
They're starting to trickle back in, and so we're trying to leverage that and get back with people. But to answer the question, I mean, it's the whole higher power thing. And it's like, whether it's, the science part, that's kind of why the organization changed the name. The book, the fundamental book we use is called The Science of Mind. It was its original working title when he wrote it was The Science of Mind and Spirit. They took the spirit power out because it was the nature of the day. We're talking the early 1920s. Science was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about early 20th century. The whole science part was a selling point. Now that's not so much a selling point.
Yeah.
I mean, just from a purely marketing standpoint, right? So the organization chose to change its name. The organization went through a big reorg several years ago, and it was just part of it. I wasn't really involved that deeply at the time. I was kind of at a distance watching it, going, okay, you're going to do that? That's great.
I think there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of confusion, Lee, about the difference between religion and spirituality. And
that's a good question.
I think they kind of see that as, a lot of these places that are suffering, part of it is because they become so involved in their own pomp and circumstance of their religion that they forgot the spiritual nature of everything. That happens. We've seen it happen. But please, if you could give us your idea of the difference between religion and spirituality.
Yeah, I really love what I don't know. Just had the same conversation with somebody a while back. I love the response from what was it? The movie Angels and Demons.
Right.
With Tom Hanks and
Brown. The author was Brown, right?
Right.
Dan Brown. Dan
Brown. So it was anyway. It was the second movie, the second book, where he said, "Religion is what man says about God. Spirituality is what God says about man."
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
so paraphrase, but roughly that.
Yeah.
Religion is an organizational structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And for me, spirituality is much more about faith. Spirituality is very much about what I believe, what I as an individual believe to be true about my relationship to a larger life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right.
And how I get there, it's up to me. I mean, I grabbed onto, what I grabbed onto, the science of mind, which is great. For me, it works. And I've grabbed onto so many other things over the years that enhance that. In the beginning, I had the science of mind, and I had the Bible, which was kind of a thing. I mean, it was the 70s in America. That's what we did. Right. But I also grabbed onto, in my exploration, the teachings of Don Juan, which is a whole thing about, the Toltec Indian faith.
Yeah.
Which is really what it's about. Everybody thought it was about peyote and all this stuff. It's really not. It was about the Toltec faith. And once you got past the first couple books. Excuse me. Richard Bach was a big part. Yeah, Carlos Castaneda. That's right, Christopher. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Christopher's here. Hi, Christopher.
Yeah. Nada, Castaneda, not Castanza. Castaneda. Spell check, Christopher.
That was my uncle Guido Castanazza. He was in New York City. Right. That was a different animal. He made you believe in things too.
Yeah. So there's that. There's Carlos Castaneda. There was Richard Bach. Wayne Dyer, Ram Dass.
Yeah.
All that's. And I got exposed to all of that, and it was fabulous. And once I got into ministerial school, and later, and early in ministry, I got to meet people like Louise Hay.
Yeah. Wow.
Who was actually trained as a religious science minister. That was her training.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I got to meet Deepak Chopra. I got to meet him, and others. It was awesome. It was amazing. It was an amazing time. It was a powerful time in the whole spiritual realm. It was kind of like the first wave. And right now, it seems what I'm seeing is we're going through another subsequent wave. I think the upside. Part of the upside to the whole lockdown and pandemic is people had time to do the introspection they weren't doing before.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
So we're seeing another wave now of people, waking up, and they're all of a sudden we're talking about the Aquarian age again.
Yeah,
like we were talking about in the age of Aquarius. People forget. There was that whole song, right, in the 70s, the age of Aquarius, or 60s. It's been dawning for a while. We're here. So, and it's fun and it's exciting, and I think it's wonderful that we have an opportunity. Those of us in the space who get to walk the path and kind of stick our hands back and say, hey, I've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
If you want somebody to cheer you on, I'll cheer you on. If you want to hold somebody's hand for a while, I'll hold your hand, and let's walk this thing together. Not that I have all the answers. I got my answers, and maybe they'll work for you.
Yeah, and you've done that for me, Lee, many times since I met you. And we met on Clubhouse. We had a connection, and since then, you've gotten some, 5:30 in the morning SOS calls and opportunities to thank God, yes, opportunities to educate me or open my mind and have me look at things in different ways, and it's honestly, it's meant the world to me. I'm so grateful for you.
Oh,
really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
I want to ask what part. We talked. You were living some wild side for a while there, and involved in some addictive behaviors, if we will, that you are now in recovery from. What part does spirituality or faith play in your recovery?
No, spirituality for me is everything in terms of my recovery. Without my spirituality, I'm not sure I could do it. And I tried to white knuckle it for a long time, and with varying success. I first entered recovery in 98.
Mm-hmm.
For combination of addictions, but fundamentally at the time it was sex and love addiction. And I crashed and burned. I kept saying yes to all kinds of opportunities. I had my boundaries were slim at best and non-existent at worst. And I was a people pleaser, for various reasons. Various reasons that I've really come much more to terms with over the last few years, in terms of my own self-discovery process over the last couple of years. I've gone much deeper into things than I've ever gone before. and had a lot of like aha moments. That without my spirituality and without a spiritual practice could have potentially been very devastating. And without the connections that I've made on places like Clubhouse with Mary Kay and Christopher and several others. My fundamental recovery community is on Clubhouse right now.
That's amazing.
Those are the people that I connect with on a daily basis, because I can do it. It's an audio, it's strictly an audio app, and I can be out in the world working and be in a meeting in my head, doing whatever it is I'm doing, right? And so it's, it was just a magical thing for me to discover that. And, some of them are very spiritual, some of them are not, some of them are straight, the recovery community is my higher power. And that's great. And for others it's different. And I'm able to be in there and be supported. And just because of, the amount of time I have I'm there to support them as well. And even in the face of, a number of little, any number of little slips over the years, being in recovery for sex and love addiction, depending on who you're working with, who your sponsor is, there are simple little things you can do that all of a sudden you're reset back to day one, and you really haven't physically done anything. It's just a mental thing, strictly a mental thing.
The lifestyle addictions are they're very difficult. We understand the big ones. Okay, we got nicotine, alcohol, and drugs. We understand the big ones as major addictions. But what people don't understand is that that sex and love, food addictions, gambling addictions, spending and shopping addiction, those kind of things are real. They're what we call lifestyle addictions.
Right.
And I'll tell you a funny story. I went to a conference that was all about lifestyle addictions. Do you know where they held the conference? In Las Vegas.
Yeah. Idiot.
In the back room at the Bellagio. So I had to walk past 300 hookers, 17 bars, through a restaurant and pastries and all that stuff, across the gambling floor to get back to the conference.
Yeah.
I don't know how many tickets they sold, but only about 300 people made it to that room.
Right.
I think they sold a lot more tickets than that. People were dropping sober, like flies.
If they made it sober at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, because it's like, and I talked about this on another show. Like for the sex and love addiction, or even like for the SAA people, like the sex addict people.
Yeah.
For a guy, especially in the early days of it, just walking past a girl and turning your head to take a second look can be a reset.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Because that's the level of discipline that we're trying to develop. It's just breaking that whole sense of objectification. That's what that's about.
Right.
Like you can notice, take a second look. No.
Right. Because the motivation behind that second look is not a healthy motivation.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you walk by and she had
that whole cycle.
If she had a spider on top of her head when she walked by, then you take a second look. You're looking for the spider. But any other reason you look is probably an unhealthy motivation. That's why you have to stop doing those things, right? It's about your motivations, and you're right. Those little minor moments could be huge slips for people.
Right.
They could send them into a tailspin.
Right. And so, and we could go. We could spend hours talking about all of that stuff. But the important part, like you said, without the spirituality piece, forget it.
Right.
I can't even begin to imagine trying to do it without that, because there are many times just sitting down, just going, I can't do this. Can't. And to pick up the phone or whatever, it's like, no, it's higher power time. We got to meditate, got to pray, got to journal, got to read, do anything but, picking up my, because even like that, because picking up my phone and doing the wrong and having my thumb hit the wrong button on my phone could be catastrophic if I'm not in the right mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
In early recovery. Now it's fine. But in early recovery, forget it. No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my phone was so locked down. All I could do is text and make phone calls.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your path to recovery, you tell us about how it affected the relationship in your life, the addiction, and then the spirituality part to get you out of.
Yeah, I mean, it's so like I said, I think it's because I blew up 2 marriages.
Blew up, yeah.
And the blessing is they are 2 of my best friends in the world right now, both of them.
That's amazing.
We just couldn't stay together. I mean, walking through my recovery process, this wasn't a thing. It wasn't going to happen. Great friends with both of them. Good relationships with all my kids. I've got a 32-year-old, and then I've got an 11 and 8-year-old, and that's a whole other story. But we're not going to.
Yeah.
But it's like I had the younger ones with me all summer last summer. They'll be again with me this summer. Great relationships with them. They're wonderful. They're both foster to adopt. That's the short version of that story.
Okay.
But they've got their
listen, it's no big deal. Tony Randall had kids when he was 96 years old. Right? He couldn't pick them up, but he had the kids. I mean, he just couldn't pick them up.
Exactly. But
oh boy.
But yeah, without building relationships, and the crucial relationship is just building the relationship with me, and just being okay with me, and I can honestly say that the quality and depth of my recovery that I've been able to gain over the last couple of years totally blows away anything I had before. I was okay. I mean, I was abstinent. I was dry. I was, I wasn't doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing, but I was still drinking. I was still, every now and then they legalized marijuana, so I gave that a roll again. But no, I had to stop it all. I just realized I had to stop it all, because every time I started drinking, or every time I toyed around with THC, marijuana, whatever, my brain instantly went down that road. And I found, so I mean, it's a gateway. It was a gateway opportunity. That's what I called it. So I refer, they were gateway substances, or gateway behaviors. So I had to stop it all. And so in terms of stopping it all, I didn't really make note of the date, but it's roughly 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roughly 4 months since I stopped everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And not that I drank a lot. I'd have a couple beers a week, maybe 3. But it was just, I knew I had a problem. I knew it was a problem because I made the decision, and I still had 3 beers in the fridge.
Yeah. And
those 3 beers lived in the fridge for months. I could not take them out and get rid of them. That was a problem.
The just in case beers. They were the just in case beers.
Who
knows what's going to happen, right?
Right. And so I finally said, you know what, dude? You guys got to take them out of there and get rid of them, right? I just like, and I finally did it. Not that I just, so it's like, I just said, okay, we got a problem, so we're just going to get rid of them. So
very self-aware of you to notice that connection, that it could take you down that road again. That's
right.
Maybe being very self-aware.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of work.
Yes, you have.
there's a point I'd really like to talk about with you, Lee, because
Sure.
you're at that point where you're really being very open, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I understand my life with addiction, and there was. I have yet to meet the person who's addicted to just one thing. It bleeds over into other areas. You become compulsive in other areas, and if one stops working, I'll find another one that will work. And that's why complete abstinence and complete sobriety for me is the only way that works for me, and it's important to me. However, it took me a long time, but I'm finally at that place where I've been at that place for a while, where it's like, listen, I'm an alcoholic. Ask me about it. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. I'm not. I'll tell you what I've done. I'll tell you the places I've been, the times I've been locked up, the things that have happened. I'll talk to you about it. I'll talk to you about the drug use. I'll talk to you about the other stuff that I've done. But when some of these lifestyle things, especially sex and love addiction, comes along, there's another level of shame that's attached to some of that. Did you find it difficult to get past the shame and the guilt? And how did you achieve that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that want to say something, but they're so shameful about what they do, they're afraid to say something.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily easy for me. It's not. And it's, I remember I was coming up on a couple of years ago, I was in I was kind of roaming around. It was when I just first started getting involved in Clubhouse. And I saw a room pop up that was talking about, I love you too, Christopher. It was sex addiction, is it real? Was the topic. And I sat and I looked at that. And I just kind of said, is this really why I'm on this app?
Yeah. Wow.
Because I am a firm believer in no accidents. There's no randomness in the universe. Everything happens in a sense of order. So I dove in, blah, blah, blah. The rest is history. So I started talking about my addiction. That was the first day I came out in any kind of public way about my addiction.
Wow.
And it has gotten progressively easier since then, because I'm a firm believer as somebody with long-term recovery. And this happens with a lot of people. Most people I know with long-term recovery eventually begin recovering out loud. It's what we call recovering out loud. We're not shy about it. We talk about it.
Yeah.
I am still somewhat selective about the areas in which I kind of talk about it. When, where, how,
Yeah.
So, I was going to say, and if I'm not at least public about it to some degree, how is anybody going to get help?
That's a good point. The conversation.
Why would I deprive somebody of the opportunity to get help by reaching out to somebody who is in recovery for it? Because like any, because it is a behavioral addiction.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's not even in the DSM yet.
Actually, the lifestyle addictions are listed in the DSM, but they're very vague at this point. They have not reached a point of consensus yet.
Yeah. It's like,
you still got people arguing about alcoholism. So does it really matter what the DSM says?
My insurance does not cover any.
Yeah.
Well, the reason
those therapy sessions were not cheap. But, yeah.
The reason that lifestyle addictions are making their way around is because they can no longer deny the destructiveness and the chemical reaction of eating disorders. And eating disorders are along the same line. It creates a chemistry in the brain. Sex and love creates chemistry in the brain. Gambling and risk-taking creates chemistry in the brain. And what happens is once your chemistry becomes altered enough, you become physically addicted to that activity.
Yeah.
You have rewired your brain.
Create those pathways, and those pathways have got to be fed. And
then we can get into genetics and epigenetics and neuroplasticity and all the other things. We can get into all that stuff. The bottom line is this. We have a responsibility. Somebody reached out their hand and helped me at a time when I was helpless and hopeless. And something found me. And that something was my spiritual leader, my spiritual guide in my life, which is different than anybody else's. It's mine. And the people in my life who reached out to me. And I have a responsibility to be available for someone else next. It's not just like I should do this. It's I need to do this because most people will die with the secret of what you lived with, Lee, and most people will die with the secret of alcoholism and drug addiction.
Yeah.
Of course, it's no longer a secret when you OD and that shit happens. But
and so that's why I do it. That's why I talk about it. I'm still having an internal debate as to whether or not I'm going to address it specifically in the book that I'm working on. I'm not sure about that yet. We'll see. We'll see how I feel as the time gets closer. That may be another whole thing. But back to the spirituality thing. I mean, the spirituality piece is the piece that for me has made all the difference. And it's not just the study and all the years of study and all the practice and all that. The most valuable part of it for me is continuing to teach, continuing to share, because that's how I stay grounded.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I get up on a Sunday morning, or I'm in a class or whatever, in a clubhouse room talking about it, and some phrase will come flying out of my mouth, and I'll be like, somebody needs to write that down because I've never heard that before.
Wow.
It's just quite that way. It's all of a sudden some little magic puzzle piece will drop, and I'll get this idea, and I'm like, yeah, that's brilliant, and it comes out of my mouth, and I'm like, I need to capture that. Because
and you're open to receiving these new ideas.
Right.
You've always been open.
It's like some speakers write out their talks word for word. I don't. I leave space. I do what's called mind mapping. It's an old technique. And I just get some ideas down on a page. I leave space, I leave space for the unexpected. And it took me a while to get there, where I trusted the process that much. But I trust the process that much.
I agree. I'm the same way. I can't write a full speech. I can't. And I speak a lot of places, and pretty much if anybody looked at my notes, they say, this doesn't even make sense. And I'm like, well, no, it does. Because what I know is this will lead to this, but all the fill-in stuff is going to come because I know I can be in touch with that part of me at that moment, and I'm okay with that.
Right. And for me, and for me, it's like I need to connect. I connect to the energy in the room. That's why exactly. Because I can get in there, and it's like, and that connecting to the energy in the room, to the people in the room, or the people watching online or whatever, is when I can do that. When that happens, everybody in the space goes, God, I needed to hear that today.
Yes, absolutely. And that's when you can be connected.
The way I can deliver that.
But you can't do that unless you know yourself. You cannot connect with other people until you know yourself. And which is what you've talked about, is you had to build that relationship with yourself. Chris is agreeing with you. He's saying, I love it. I do the same. That and the fish and bones diagrams.
Oh, fishbone diagrams. I love those.
And, well, I don't know about that, but I love the bonefish grill. Does that count?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bonefish grill.
There we go. We've got a comment from Sandy, who also happens to be my mother. She's saying, I am sober from alcohol and drugs for 43 years now. I know in my heart, without a connection to people and spirituality, I would be playing with a myriad of other addictive behaviors. So, and that is my mom, who was one of the people who helped me. And Chris, thank you for being nice to my mother. Thank you. All right.
It's like my first wife. when we met in, what year was that? 86, 80, 87. We met in 87. In 87, she had 5 years of sobriety. And she's not,
wow.
I mean, I'm not outing her, and she recovers out.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 87, so what is that, 40, 30, she's coming up on what, 40 years now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
That's
well,
crazy.
she's 30, let's see, 30, 36 years now. Yeah.
Wow. That's,
I mean, she's one of those, she tells the story. I mean, she down a 6-pack in the shower in the morning.
wow.
Wow.
That's just waking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was back in the old days when you used to wash your hair with beer. And then the alcoholics figured out, what the hell am I wasting this on my hair for?
Right.
Oh, geez.
If I drink it, it'll go through the hair. It'll be fine.
Sorry, she's like looping it over the shower head.
Oh my goodness.
Lee,
Wow.
you are awesome. I love everything about you, brother. But and you're looking forward to doing new things and into building and expanding on what you're doing. Tell us what's coming in the future.
What's coming?
Lee?
Yeah.
So I've got the book. The book will get done this year. At least the writing part. The writing part will get done. It's writing and organizing will get done this year. I've got the spiritual community I have been supporting for the last couple of years in Scottsdale. Will be becoming co-minister there in very soon. I'm
Congrats.
speaking there. Thank you. I'm speaking there this Sunday, and then if things, assuming all goes well, which most likely will, I'll be speaking every other Sunday starting in March.
Nice.
So we're very, very, very excited about that. So speaking this Sunday. Look for me on Instagram or Facebook. All the information for that will be there. And then what else? So be teaching classes, workshops, and all that. Look, it'll all be on my Instagram and my Facebook accounts. Will be all over that. The classes I'm going to be teaching will be hybrid, so they'll be both in person and online.
Wow!
And I have plans for tentative plans for a long weekend workshop in the fall. So it'll be like a Friday night through Sunday, in person.
That sounds wonderful.
Live, yeah. So
you ought to hold that in Florida. Just come on down.
Yeah. I'm also There's an event in Florida in October. I'm not sure. I'm looking at too. So.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah. So,
I have to ask you.
I
know that. With all this stuff you're teaching, and you've got the it's a spiritual center in mind, and you're doing that, right. And you've got the books. But personally, I always find it when people are spiritually led, they've got their own personal message that they feel comes from within them. Have you touched that within yourself about knowing what your personal message is and what it is that connects you to all of this and that you want to get to other people?
Yeah, I mean the big, there's a couple things. I mean my personal mission vision statement. I mean we they made us come up with one when we were in school, right? It's like part of the whole ministerial school thing. And I keep revisiting it from time to time, and every time I do, I don't really come up with anything new, and it works for me. And it's just simply to be a beneficial presence wherever I am, whatever I'm doing. The core of that for me is a principle that I picked up in a training in the mid-late 80s called On Course, and it was led by, they were veterans of LifeSpring and Earhart Seminar Training and all that. This couple, Michael and Paulette's son, Bob Trask and Eris. Those days. And they taught this principle called One Now, and it's a very spiritual thing. Spirituality, we talk about oneness and all that, and being present. And all. For them, it was one now, and the practice was to, walk through. We walk through life so unconsciously by habit, many of us, And the practice was to stop periodically through the day and just stop and look and breathe and just look around you and look at the people and take a deep breath and just go one, just acknowledging the oneness, acknowledging the connection, acknowledging how we're all connected. One now.
One now. I love that.
Now. And so that's very foundational for me to everything, is staying present, being aware of the connection. And I mean, if we could do that, I mean, imagine if we all did that. You know, we did a little exercise, you know, in the workshop where, you know, there were, you know, 50, 60, 70 people walking around the room, pausing in front of everybody, making eye contact, breathing, and one person would say one, and when the other person felt the connection, they would say now.
Oh,
and then you move on.
Gave me shivers.
Yeah, I know, right? And then you move
Wow.
on to the next. You know, do that for, you know, in a group that large for 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Just imagine the energy rise in the space.
Wow.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's the kind of, I mean, that's the level of connection I try to find, or I endeavor to find, day in, day out, with at least one person, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, because that allows me the opportunity to remember that I can be that connected.
Yeah. Sometimes all it takes is connection
And we
with one
are
person. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all connected.
We are all, I mean, we're all that connected, but it takes the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Because without the acknowledgement,
I love that.
the inner acknowledgement and just being aware of it with other people, man, it's amazing.
I'm going to start doing that, Lee. One now.
One now.
One
That's
now.
right.
Breathe.
I've done that my whole life. I want one now. I've done that my whole life.
Right?
Isn't that the same thing?
No, Scott, no.
Not the same thing.
Don't do that.
I want one of those.
Oh my goodness.
Now.
Right?
Lee told me to do this.
Coffee.
Shut up and give it to me. Drugs bad, coffee good, folks. There we go.
Right.
Mary, any thoughts on wrapping up here?
Yeah, this has been a wonderful hour. I can't believe we're at the wrap up point already. And I mean, for me, exploring spirituality more in the last year and a half since I met you, more than I have in the past, has really opened up an entire new area to explore in my life. I'm enjoying it. It's given me some freedom, and I hope that everybody at least gets a chance to explore it if they're not already practicing spirituality or even thinking about it. So thank you, Lee, for coming. I'm so happy that you were able to be here today.
Lee, absolutely appreciate you, brother. I love everything that you're doing. It's great to have you on the show. We'll have you back again, I'm sure. You know, and we'll stay in touch. You know, one of the things that when I'm working with people that are coming out of addiction and coming into themselves and just feel lost and broken, and religion seems like the furthest thing from their mind, or at least the furthest thing from their reach. I let them know the difference between spirituality and religion is for people who are trying to stay out of hell. And spirituality is for people who have already been there. Right. And it connects us all together. And it connects people like the three of us. And I think it's a beautiful thing. You're doing a great job, Lee. Thank you so very much for being here.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So that's a wrap for episode number 9 of The Life Between All and Nothing with Scott J. and Mary Kay. Yay. I know it went by fast, but we got a great guest. We're going to have more great guests in the future. And my final thought is go Eagles. Okay. Just go Eagles.
I see it on your name there.
Go Chiefs. I lived in Kansas City for 3 years. So.
You're going to root for Kansas City?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, you're not allowed to bring your spiritual people with you into that. That gives them an unfair advantage. You're not allowed to bring all that energy.
Chris and Scott, I probably won't even be watching. So I mean, it's right
funny.
here in my town. I did not even know it was going to be here until like 3 weeks ago when I started seeing the signs come up.
Yeah,
that's how detached I am from the NFL. So
wow, that's a shame.
Scott will be watching. On the other hand, he'll
I'll
watch
be
for
watching.
all three of us.
You watch for me too, Scott.
I'll watch for all of us. All right.
Oh my God.
Again, thank you very much for watching The Life Between All or Nothing. I'm Scott J.
And I'm Mary Kay. Thank you for being here. I believe in you.
And I believe in you too.